Welcome to KOFE Talk, where we dive into the world of financial wellness and empowerment. Today, we have a very special guest with us, someone who has made significant impact in the realm of family finance and financial independence. Andy Hill is the founder and host of Marriage, Kids, and Money, a blog and podcast dedicated to helping young families build wealth and thrive. With his engaging and approachable style, Andy shares invaluable insights on managing money within the dynamics of marriage and raising children. His journey to financial independence by the age of 40 is nothing short of inspiring. He has become a trusted voice for families looking to navigate the complexities of budgeting, investing, and achieving financial goals together. So without further ado, let's welcome Andy to the KOFE Podcast. Welcome, Andy. Thank you so much for being on KOFE Talk. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. And I got my coffee here too.
Excellent. Cheers. So Andy, can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how you started Marriage, Kids, and Money?
Sure. Yeah. I started Marriage, Kids, and Money out of personal necessity. It was one of those things where I said, well, I want to figure out how to, speak more intelligently about money with my wife. I want to teach my kids the importance of delayed gratification, and I want to build generational wealth for them. I feel like if I'm going to try to practice that myself, I might as well try to learn from others and share our journey along the way. So that was really the genesis of starting the Marriage, Kids, and Money brand and all that went into it back in 2016. But yeah, a lot of it came from when I got married with my wife and in 2010, and we had all the startings of a new marital relationship and all that goes into it, trying to figure out how to live together on a budget, how to plan our lives together, and all that we wanted. So yes, it was definitely out of personal necessity.
I think that's amazing. And can I ask how old your children are about?
Absolutely. Yeah, my daughter is 12 and my son is 10.
So do they ever talk about how they see money and maybe how they see differences with how you've taught them to think about money compared to their friends?
Absolutely. Yeah, that conversation comes up often. Now, from the dad side of things, they join me on the podcast every month. So we're constantly talking about money as co-hosts of the show, but then also that continues throughout our daily lives, because when you talk about money conversations, they're really life conversations. We go to the store and we talk about the things that we are going to buy here today, or the things that we're planning on buying, and the reason we want to buy them because that they fit in with our values. And then the values discussion goes back to our budget. So when we talk about the budget, and the purpose of the budget is we've planned for these things because they fit in with our family values. Now, are there things that are outside of our budget that we might want? Well, great. Let's have a conversation about that and discuss it for the future. So a lot of these conversations happen on a daily basis, really, in our house.
I think that's great. So important. I don't know, to have financial literacy talked about, especially with kids. It changes the ballgame for them.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about any financial challenges that you had early on in your marriage that really brought you to the place to be like, gosh, we need to sit down and figure this out?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say it started pretty much right away when we got married. One of those things, we were interested in collaborating on our money. And so we said, hey, between my salary and your salary, we're going to be doing great. I was making like $60,000 when we got married, and my wife was making $70,000. So combined, wow, we're making $130,000 together. This is fantastic. We must be rich, right? And so I was watching the Susie Orman show one day back then, and she kept talking about net worth, net worth, net worth. It was this topic that kept coming up, and I'm like, what is net worth? What does that even mean? And I'm like, well, if we're making $130,000, surely our net worth is huge. And then I decided to, try it out on a whiteboard one day, and see what our net worth was. So I calculated our assets, I calculated our liabilities, and lo and behold, we were not rich. We had a negative $50,000 net worth. So I came to quickly discover that it didn't really matter how much money we made. It mattered how much money we were actually saving and putting away and developing assets and eliminating those liabilities. So right with that conversation, my wife and I started to say, okay, what can we do to move our family in the right direction, help our daughter that's going to be coming in the world in the next year to have a great future? And so we started having discussions around money. Now, that's where the conversations and the difficulty started to come in between the two of us. For me, concepts like net worth and eliminating our debt and things like that were exciting because I'm like a numbers guy. So when I would bring up conversations to my wife saying, hey, we used to just live on our salaries alone. Why don't we continue to do that and then save the other salary so that we can, get out of this negative net worth area that we're in, pay off our debt, and eventually, save for our daughter's future. How does that sound? She said, that sounds like deprivation. That sounds like you want to have no fun.
No.
And that sounds really tight. Like, why? Why would we do that? I mean, to grow a net worth and become debt free. What does that even mean? And I'm like, no, this is a fantastic idea. Where are you going? Why are you walking away? And so after I thought about it for a little while, I realized, you know what? I wasn't actually speaking her language. I was speaking more in the terms that I liked, like net worth growth and increasing our investments and becoming debt free. Those were all numbers focused goals, and I kind of like that. I still like that today. But until I actually started to think about it from her perspective, which was, what is the emotional payoff of doing that? What is the benefit of doing that? And then I thought, you know what? She's not really digging her job all that much right now. And eventually she does want to stay at home with our kids. So once I flipped the script and said, hey, doing these things that I've talked about will allow us to go from your full-time job to having a part-time job to eventually being a stay-at-home mom. Does that sound like something you'd get down with? And then it became a little bit more of a, okay, how do we do this? Okay, I'm now interested. Let's talk about meeting for your budget party once a month and having conversations around money. So 14 years later, we're still doing it. So
I think that's amazing. So you learn to adapt, to frame it in a way that it would be successful for the both of you, to have her think about it in a different way. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've definitely tried the continual cramming the message down her throat thing. That does not work. You can't just keep pressing it and be like, why doesn't she get it? Because I'm not speaking her language.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you've achieved like financial freedom by the age of 40, right? That's the big milestone. And can you talk us through the steps like that you took to get there?
Sure.
To get to that level by a young age, 40, to have that kind of stability at 40 is fantastic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and financial freedom, financial independence is different definition for everybody. I would say that we feel some great sense of financial freedom in our situation. We both work part-time at this point in our lives and have a lot more time for our family and for our health and spending time with our aging parents, things like that. Those are important values that we hold. But look, so the process that we did that was that starting point of really connecting together on a monthly basis to look over the numbers, what we had coming in and what we had going out. And we quickly found in the beginning, we're spending a lot more than we probably need to be in these certain areas if our end goal is to allow my wife to be able to go part-time and then stay at home with the kids. So that became our North Star. Okay, what are we going to dial back on? When she was pregnant, we were saying, okay, maybe we don't need to go out to the bar and concerts as much because you're probably not going to really enjoy that as much. So we started to dial back some of our entertainment spending. And then the real difficult part with that was saying no more. We had a lot of people calling us, hey, let's go out, let's do this. Or even from our parents saying, hey, let's go on this vacation that worked well for their budget because they were retirees, were living on a pension, but not so much for us if we had these plans. So saying no became a really difficult thing for us to do in the beginning. But over time, we were able to do that with a way of saying, hey, no, but why don't we do this instead? Or no, but why don't we get together in this fashion? So we were able to dial things back in that fashion. We also looked at different ways to do our grocery shopping that allowed us to, maybe not spend the top dollar, look for lower cost ways to get through that grocery budget. Just for an example, we switched over to Aldi instead of going to some of the higher priced grocery stores around us. A lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same staples, but we were able to save so much money. Some other tactics we did to decrease, but eventually we got to that point where we were saving about 50% of our income for a good 10 years of our marriage. And by doing that, we eliminated our $50,000 of debt. We had a $30,000 of student loans. It's very nice of me to say we. I had the $30,000 of student loans. My wife had a car loan of about $20,000. And by living on half for about a year, we were able to pay off that debt. And that became like a big moment for us where we were crossing over that positive net worth territory, eliminating our debt. And then we got kind of excited about what we could do next. Investing for our future became a big part of that. And then eventually continuing down the train of paying off our mortgage. And we found a little bit between investing for the future and then
Mhm.
paying off the mortgage that, wow, we really have some more time freedom here for us to make choices that are best for our family. So that became our path.
Oh, so amazing.
Oh,
Can I
thank you.
ask you, with the debt strategy, what strategy did you use to figure out what to pay off first? Did you go with the highest interest rate? Did you go with the one that you thought would be easiest to pay off because it was a smaller amount? So, can you explain for the audience a little bit the thought process on what to pay off when?
Yeah, absolutely. We went with the debt avalanche strategy. It was not too much of a difference in the interest rate for us. I think my student loan was around 7% and the car loan was maybe around 4%. But I really hated my student loan. So it was sort of a combined debt hatred method as well as debt avalanche method. It's like, which one do I hate the most? And I
Right.
want to
I love
get rid of
that.
the fastest. So,
Passion. Which one?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we went with that. So we paid off that student loan and then we said, okay, let's move on to the car loan. I think sometimes when you're like, well, I'll put a little bit here, I'll put a little bit towards the mortgage, I'll put a little bit towards the student loan of the car. It feels like it's a slow slog. But
Mhm.
if you maybe say, hey, which one are we going to hit first? And then
Right.
eventually you get to that point where you paid one off, you celebrate a little bit and say, yeah, we did something cool. Let's go out to dinner. Let's do something that we feel happy about without going to debt more, of course. And then feeling that celebration moment, then you're ready for the next one. And so that's what we did. We started off with the student loans and then we hit the car loan.
And so, what advice do you have for couples who are going through difficulties because they don't have the same communication style and they're fighting over money or they just don't know how to move forward? What's
Yeah,
your advice?
I would say a big learning lesson for me during that time, and what I do advise to my coaching clients is the first thing if you're in a married relationship and you want to improve your finances is that you need to physically carve out time for that communication, for that collaboration, for looking over the numbers together, and for being open minded to both people. You're both going to have opinions, and that's great. You didn't marry somebody just to have the same exact opinion as you. I guarantee that. So get together, carve it out on your calendar. Don't just say, "Hey, yeah, we're going to do that." Like, what day of the week are you going to do it over coffee on Saturday morning? Are you
Mhm.
going to, hey, on Thursday night, you're going to have a glass of wine together, make it fun. You're going to talk about the numbers and get over, and when you get together, those things that you can talk about are, hey, let's look at our budget from the last month, see what we did, where our spending was, what we can improve on. Let's plan the next month because we're going to look at our calendar and see what's going on with our family, and then let's loop back to those goals, short-term goals, long-term goals. What do we want to be as a relationship? What do we want to be as a family? What values do we stand for? And is our budget lined up with those values? Are we saying, hey, we really want to make sure that our daughter's going to graduate college student debt free? Okay. With that value, are you putting away money in a 529 college savings account to help your child do that? Are you saying, hey, we really want to be debt free as a family? Well, what are you doing to create margin in your budget to
Mhm.
allow for you to pay down those debts, whether it be the debt avalanche method or the debt hatred method or debt snowball method, whatever your method is? Are you
Mhm.
allocating money to make that happen this month? And don't get too, I guess, bogged down in the, hearing stories about people who've paid it off super fast, or, think, because some of those things can make you feel like, oh, I'm not making any progress.
You
Any
shouldn't compare
1%,
yourself. Right.
exactly. Any
Right.
1% improvement that you can make this month today is a win. And then just start to build on that. Okay, I did that this month. What can I do
Mhm.
next month? How can I increase that a little bit? Or how can I side hustle a little bit more in order to make some of that back? I think those 1% improvements are so much better than trying to shoot for the moon and then doing nothing.
Right. And then being disappointed if it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever so you mostly counsel couples together, you coach couples together?
Yeah, sometimes it ends up being one of those situations where both couples will come on the call, and then
Mhm.
other times there's a leader. There's somebody in the group that's saying, "I want to improve. I can't really maybe bring my spouse on just yet, but I thought if I could lead by example, maybe they'll come along." And
Mhm.
if you're in a situation like that, I would be that leader. I would be that shining light that says, "Okay, if I can't get my spouse to show up for whether it's a coaching call or if it's just, starting that budgeting process, be the leader, and then start showing some progress personally. And then over time, I feel good about your partner jumping in. And if they never seem to jump on and you've been doing it for a while, then yes, that's when something like financial counseling can really help, because you need to have a third party jump in and say, hey, you guys are having difficulty communicating about this topic. Let's dive into why. And those sessions can really be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's amazing, because I feel like a lot of times when people talk about money, there is one person who's the leader, and there's one person who's like, I don't want to talk about numbers. I don't want to think about money. I
Yes.
just want to like live my life. So I think that's a wonderful message to say, one of you choose, go ahead and show the progress, and hopefully they'll jump on board. So
Yes.
that's really great. So if somebody came to you for advice and said, I have kids 10, 11, 12, what's one good money like game or example, or how should I teach them the value of money?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way, especially for kids that you're describing, is find a way to get money in your kids' hands, because
Mhm.
you get better at things when you're actually practicing with those things. I liken it to playing basketball, right? We could talk about basketball a lot, or we could, study plays, but you're going to get better at playing basketball by putting a basketball in your hands, dribbling it, shooting it. So if you can find ways, whatever works best for your family, whether that's allowance or doing chores at the house or helping them to set up their first lemonade stand if you want them to be entrepreneurial, but allowing them to find a way to get money and then teaching them the values on how to use it, and being okay when they have failures with that money in the beginning. Because how do we learn? We learn from failing, right? You ride your bike and you fall down a bunch of times, but you eventually learn how to ride that bike. So I really implore parents to find ways that work best for your family values about getting money in your kids' hands. And that can be physical cash. By 10, 11, 12, our family has moved on to debit cards,
Mhm.
because we have some great online banks that you can work with, and you get the debit card, and it just makes it a little easier. In the beginning, we were doing a lot of cash and, passing around the okay, you did your chore, here's $3, and okay, I got to bring this back to the bank, and then I got to go to the
Mhm.
ATM today. Eventually, you can get to a digital process where it becomes a lot easier. That being said, debit card's a good way to go. That way they know, here's how much I physically have in my account. I can't spend more than that. The concept of credit cards it baffles a lot of adults, so I would not go down that path too early. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I was teaching my son about credit cards and how it worked, he was like, what? He's like, you have to use that, and then you have to pay them extra money to be able to do that. He's like, Mom, why would anybody use a credit card? I was like,
yeah,
well, as life goes on, you'll see why.
you'll
But
see, right?
yeah,
Exactly,
you'll
right.
see. Exactly. So, what is one piece of financial advice somebody gave you that you really hold dear and like spread that message and, communicate that with your clients and other people you meet?
Yeah, I would say I think it really goes back to um, what you really want your life to be. I think sometimes we get so fixated on the numbers, and I could speak from experience there, that building your wealth or becoming rich or eliminating your debt, whatever the numbers focus thing is, we can get so excited about that because it is a specific goal. But unless it's attached to a why, like, why would I want to become a millionaire? Like, what is that going to do for me? Why would I want to become debt free? What am I going to do at that point that's going to change my life for the better, or change my family's life for the better? Because without a why, without a driving force to
Mhm.
keep moving forward, you just run out of steam. And I know from achieving some of those milestones, although they've been really cool to say, unless you have a why or a reason, after that, what's going to change about my life after I become debt free? What am I going to make? How am I going to make my life different after that? It's
Mhm.
not going to be as impactful. So you need to put a why behind it. And I would say, I guess the person who taught me that would probably be my wife. Because otherwise it's just a number. It really is just
Right,
a number on a page or a number in an account. And
right.
unless you're moving towards the life you've always wanted to have with
Mhm.
every micro step along the way, then it might not be worth it. So
might not be worth it. And now, so you mentioned micro steps.
yes.
I really like, could you give like 3 habits that you think people need to start working on, or micro steps, to achieve like paying off their debt and being not to worry about money really is, I think, the goal of most people. Like they just don't want to have the burden of worry. So what are some habits that you think people could start instituting to get there?
Yeah, I would say one micro step that people could do is, a lot of us are familiar with how much we make, right? You could rattle off how much you make. I could rattle off how much we make. I would say that not a lot of people know how much they spend. So I would say it's a micro step would be an understanding of how much is going out of your budget, of your account each month, because that's really where the power is. Yes, it's great.
Mhm.
Making more money can always solve a lot of problems. It really can. But
Mhm.
if you spend all of that money,
Right.
then you're really not having a lot of power with your wealth and your wealth creation. So
Mhm.
I would say one micro step would be to create a budget. Really, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, find the way that you can create a budget to see how much is coming in and how much is going out. Because that difference, let's say you make 5,000 and you spend 4,000, that $1,000 difference there is powerful. You can pay
Mhm.
off your debt, you can invest, you can save for the future, you can prepare for emergencies, you can invest for generational wealth. That's where the power is. So obviously, if you can grow the gap where you're earning more and spending less, that's where the power is. So the more you can save in your savings percentage
Mhm.
there can be very impactful. So that was one. I know that I went a little long on the percent or micro step.
No, I think it's fantastic, and I just think it's an important message for people to hear. And I like how you put it in a percentage. Like if the percentage increases, to look at like a 1% gain, that's real money and that's real savings. So it doesn't
Absolutely.
have to be 50%, right?
Yeah, if you
It
go
always
from, I
goes.
mean, that's a micro step right there. So you've
Yeah.
created the budget, right? And that's an important step. Shouldn't
Mhm.
take too long if you work with a great, fintech app or even on an Excel spreadsheet. But then the next micro step would be to say, okay, what is my percentage, my savings rate right now? Is it 1%? Is it -1%? Like
Right.
it could be. So what am
Mhm.
I going to do to increase that by 1% this month? What am I going to do to increase that to 10% by the end of the year? Like that might be tough, but what are the steps that I'm going to do in order to do that? So the second step would be to make a savings rate percentage goal, right? And then I guess a third micro step to your point there would be what are the actions that I'm going to take to either increase my income or decrease my expenses, because that's how that percent grows. So
Mhm.
increase my income would be, okay, could I sell a bunch of stuff around my house right now that is just laying around that has value that I'm not even using on Facebook Marketplace? Wow, I just saved a couple $100. I just saved $500. I sold this couch that I wasn't using or I don't need anymore.
Mhm.
That's great. That's an easy win that you could do on a weekend. It really is. And then on the expense side, hey, maybe I'll check out Aldi this weekend instead of my higher price grocery store,
Mhm.
or maybe I'll shop my homeowners and car insurance and bundle them together. Whoa, I just saved $1,000 by doing that. These little micro steps can go a long way.
So what's next for marriage, kids, and money? What's on the horizon?
Oh man, I am all about just trying to create free financial educational content on our channels, between our YouTube channel, our podcast, our blog. Our goal is to provide helpful information for families so that they can build family wealth and happiness. And we've been at that for about 8 years. And I am lucky enough to work with some fantastic writers and editors to bring forth the content. So yeah, if people are interested in learning a little bit more from us, we're at marriagekidsandmoney.com or on any social handle at Marriage Kids and Money, and YouTube again at that same handle, Marriage Kids and Money. Thank you.
So my last question is, if you could have dinner with 3 people living or dead, who would they be?
Oh wow. I've been very interested in, I don't know, family heritage
Mhm.
and background. I think it would be kind of cool to have dinner with some, great grandparents back in the day that I wouldn't even know their names, just to see how they lived, how their days were. Maybe specifically, my wife and I have talked about this, like specifically from like the early 1800s, like before the Industrial Revolution, before everybody was so busy. going from the next thing and producing more. Like what was a day like back then? What was a productive day where you felt like you worked hard and you helped people and you moved forward things that were important for your family, but then you allowed yourself to rest? I mean, I've talked to my wife about, back in the day when they would, they'd finish the harvest and they'd have a harvest festival and it would last for a week or, a long time. And I don't know, we long for a little bit more of times where we valued and put forth in our society relaxation, time with family, time for reflection. I feel like there's just a lot of go, 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 go lately. So I would like to learn from my ancestors about how they used to live and maybe try to grab a little bit of that back in 2024.
I think that's fantastic. I really do. Wouldn't it be fascinating to sit down with your ancestors
Yeah,
and live more of the simple life? Because,
absolutely.
I think the simple life truly is the good life, right?
We're trying. We're trying as much as we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for joining me today at Coffee Talk. I think your insights were invaluable. And I hope that all of our listeners go and check out Andy's blog and website. Do you want to give it to us one more time?
Yeah, Marriage, Kids, and Money. If you like listening to podcasts, you can go look us up at Marriage, Kids, and Money on any of your favorite podcast players. YouTube, again, Marriage, Kids, and Money. And the website is marriagekidsandmoney.com. We try to keep it easy, just the same thing.
That. Yeah, crazy. All right. I love it. All right. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.